Welcome to Blaise the Trail podcast, bringing you authentic and vulnerable stories that will inspire you to breathe fire on this world and become your own hero. Here's your host, Blaise Hunter.
Hello, welcome to Blaise the Trail podcast. I'm Blaise Hunter, and I am a fertility expert. No, I don't help people get pregnant. This is a different type of expertise. I actually inspire people to birth confidence, self-worth, to birth their books, business ideas, dreams, passions, and goals, as well as help them discover peace amongst infertility. After going through my own sets of traumas and tragedies, dealing with a rare disease, and experiencing 3 miscarriages, I decided to take charge of my life and not let life happen to me, but rather become the hero of my own life. I am not barren. I continually birth my purpose every day. So that's why I've created this show, to demonstrate how even though we all experience setbacks and disappointments, we still have a destiny to birth. We just need to blaze the trail and be expecting. This podcast will inspire you to lean into your hardships and allow them to be the vehicle that transports you into becoming the hero of your life so you can breathe fire on this world. This week's episode is called Beyond the Podium, and some points we'll cover are how Canada's 2-time Olympic gold medalist transitioned to being a mentor. We will discuss what it takes to develop resiliency. How can we teach our children to overcome adversity? And we will dive in deep on the topic of body image. And I have the fabulous Katrina LeMay-Doan here to speak on this topic today. Katrina LeMay-Doan was the fastest woman on ice. After carrying the Canadian flag into the 2002 Olympic Winter Games opening ceremony, her 4th Olympics, Katrina defended her Olympic title with a gold medal performance in the 500-meter event, becoming the first Canadian individual to defend a gold medal at any Olympic Games. She held the world record in the 500-meter for 10 years. During her career, Katrina broke 13 world records. Her accomplishments have earned her the 2002 Lou Marsh Award as Canada's Athlete of the Year. Katrina has covered 5 Olympic Games and co-hosted the primetime show Countdown to Beijing. She joined the CTV Olympic broadcast team for the Vancouver 2010 Games, which earned her a Gemini for Best Sports Analyst. Katrina continued her work with CTV as co-host of Olympic Morning for the London 2012 Games. She was inducted into Canada's Sports Hall of Fame and the Canadian Olympic Committee Sports Hall of Fame and appointed an Officer of the Order of Canada, one of Canada's highest honors. Katrina is President and CEO of Sport Calgary in helping to advance amateur sport in Calgary. She lives in Calgary with 2 children, Greta and Easton. Welcome, Katrina, to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yes, this has been so amazing to even have you on. We're both from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. You have been my childhood hero, and it's just such an honor to have you on today and have this discussion, what I'm so passionate about, and just dive in deep of what makes us us and, become the heroes of our lives. So truly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for appearing on today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Awesome. So we talked about your bio. You're just an incredible icon in Canada and in the world, and you are a 2-time Olympic gold medalist and held the title of fastest woman on ice. Can you just take us through the journey of life after, finishing up competing and what brought you to where you are today?
How long do we have?
I know, right? As long as you want.
The thing is that, at some point that there's an end to the part of your career where you're competing. And so, in that sort of world, you say, okay, I'm retiring. And it was, and it was the right time, but it was also emotional and tough. And then all of a sudden you look at what's ahead. And as a winter athlete, many of us had to pull out of university. So I had about half to 2/3 of my degree. And then we were traveling so much with competition that I had to pull out. And so I never finished my degree. A lot of summer athletes end up being able with sport to get their degree. A lot of them are, their sport is NCAA, so they're able to go to school and do their sport as well. So there I am at 32 years old saying, okay, there's only a certain amount of time if I want to start a family, and now what? So it's been an interesting journey. It's, you make your choices, and I would never choose to change anything, because to me, things happen for a reason, and you come out of setbacks, you come out of successes, and you learn from them all. But it was an interesting journey the last few years, just with having a family, and there's nothing that I enjoyed more, getting right into broadcasting, getting onto boards, volunteering, and then getting to a point, though, where you kind of go, okay, and doing a lot of public speaking, but then, as things starting to slow down a little bit, what am I actually going to do for work? Like, what am I going to do when I grow up? And I'm about to turn 50, and sometimes I still feel like I'm saying that. As you mentioned, I now am with Sport Calgary, and I was given, I was really fortunate to be given that opportunity, and then have taken that. I've been there for the last 4 years and have taken that and really enjoyed it and learned a lot. But it's, everybody's path is different. It's never boring, but it's scary at times too. And I'm okay to acknowledge that, and probably okay to acknowledge all of that now at my age. I don't think 10 years ago I could have said a lot of things that I say now, sort of just too intimidated. So it's been an interesting journey in the 17 years that I've been retired.
Yeah, everybody that's in your kind of profession and being an athlete, you kind of develop other interests beyond that, and it depends where your jam is, where you go in those pockets, right? So you were really good at speaking, and so that leveraged you to do broadcasting and speaking on events, and that leveraged more interest and passion. So it's been an incredible thing to watch you transition from skating to all the way to what you're doing now, but it all kind of stems back to that passion of sport, right?
For sure. People assume that when you do well in Olympic sport that it comes with a paycheck. It does not, especially in a sport like speed skating. There are certain sports where they, then there's sort of a professional side that they can go to, or, in figure skating, they can then do shows. In skiing, they get quite a bit of money from their ski sponsor, regardless of, their results. But in speed skating, it's very different. So you end your career, and you don't have a pension, you don't have anything, and everybody just kind of says, okay, thanks so much for doing that. Good luck. And you kind of go, okay, what now? So I enjoyed the speaking. I worked really hard at it, and I've continued to work very hard at trying to keep myself relevant. The opportunity for the broadcast came up, and I worked really hard to try to improve myself and to make that work. And, so opportunities, doors get opened sometimes, but you have to work hard at it. And so I think that's a lot of times the assumption, though, is that when somebody does well and they win medals, that these doors are just opened, and they're not. You have to pursue them. You have to go and knock on those doors and beat them down sometimes, and and just say, hey, I'm here and I'm going to keep working at it. And I've never been scared of hard work. It's more the fear of, is this sort of the right way to open a door? And the scary thing that I realized was that of all my years of competing and training, I was given this training program. It was up to me to then do it. At the end of the day, if I stood on that line and I knew that I'd missed stuff, or I had not worked as hard as possible, then I was the one responsible. But all of a sudden, here I was ready to work, ready to try new things, and you're waiting on other people to sort of open that door. And that was very frustrating, and that was very new for me, and took a lot of patience, it took a lot of frustration, and I continue to do that. And then when you have kids who you're responsible to, there's just another level of fear about, you don't have all the time in the world, and you don't have all the resources. And so, yeah, it's been exciting, but it's been challenging as well.
Oh, absolutely. I could totally see how, you had for years, certain, paths that were just laid out for you, and you can do that and I can handle that. And then you get out of that, and now it's a whole new world. And did you ever feel like you said, it wasn't always just handed to you? Did you ever get rejected? Did you ever close door? And how did you handle that?
Oh, for sure. And I mean, the interesting thing is that, and when I say that Sport Calgary gave me that opportunity, is my old boss, I don't have the letters after my name. I have OC for Order of Canada, being an officer of the Order of Canada, but I don't have the letters of having a degree. And for some work opportunities, that's the first thing. If you don't have that, then the door closes. Where I learned so much through my time with sport. You could put me in any stressful situation. The things that I've learned to deal with, a lot of these things that you don't learn through a degree. There are other opportunities, and there are other ways that I could give back, and that I could be the leader that they wanted. And so I was really thankful and fortunate that he saw that. And so, there were times when the doors were closed because, I didn't have the first part of what they were looking for. So the door never even partly opened. It's frustrating, but as I mentioned, I've never been one to shy away from hard work. And so, that opportunity eventually came up. But it's perseverance, and that's what people need to have. You have to be realistic. Like, I wasn't looking to go do some job that I would never be qualified for, but you have to sell yourself. And that is a very difficult thing to do for a lot of people, and it was for me. But you have to learn how to do it eventually.
Yeah, we'll discuss that later about resiliency, but it builds that perseverance, because how bad do you want it? How bad do you want to lean into something in a career? You're not always going to get the open door. And, I've been on a big mission to really disrupt the education system and open our minds about, experience versus those letters behind your name. Like, I won't take away from that. That's hard work. That's great that people have that, but don't discount the people with the experience and just natural gifting in that area that may not have gone to school to get the degree for it, right?
For sure. And again, I'm the same. I don't want to dismiss anybody who has gone to school, and I admire that. But I think just, giving everybody the opportunity to be able to see what their skill set is and how they could be leaders in a certain way.
For sure. So yes, you're transitioning through being that athlete, going into different areas for a career. I find a lot of time pro athletes and competitors really attach their identity to what they do, because that's all they've done for many, many years. And then when retirement comes, they feel lost. And you see it all over in different sports. They don't know who they are beyond their sport. Did this happen to you, or were you able to handle the transition smoothly? Like, how did you handle that?
Again, I think it's an assumption that people are going to struggle with it. And when I'd retired, that's what people said. Okay, it's really tough because, you don't know who you are. And I spoke, it was about 10 years after retiring, at an event for, it's called Game Plan, and it's a program that the Canadian Olympic Committee started for retiring athletes. And I said to them, I'm probably not going to say what you're expecting me to say, because everybody expected that, okay, you're going to retire, you're going to have a hard time. Mm-hmm. And I got up there and I said to the athletes, I did not have a hard time. I was ready to retire. I knew I wanted to have kids. Within a few months of retiring, I got pregnant. I pursued the broadcast side, started working full-time with that. And, it was just like go, go, go. And everything just evolved and kept going. But I said, but be ready, because at some point it will hit you. But for me, it was at about 10 years, because all of a sudden my kids were still young, but old enough that, they need me, but they don't need me just to survive. Mm-hmm. So my role and kind of my value changed a little bit. And that's when I started kind of going, what am I going to do when I grow up? Because my kids need me, but they don't need me as much as they did. I don't have sort of this job that if everything else falls apart, what's going to happen? So all I said to these athletes was, it will hit you at some point, but don't have this schedule that, okay, I'm retiring, so now I'm going to struggle. Be adaptable. And, especially in this time that we're in with COVID, you have to be adaptable. You have to be flexible. You have to understand that there's unknown, and that's what's scary. I don't like unknown. I'm a bit of I'm planner, but I'm spontaneous, but I'm like, okay, let's go. I know what I want to do. So when you don't know what's ahead, it's intimidating. So I had to learn at that point, at about the 10-year point, to go, okay, what is it that I want to do? And that's when you have to start to go, okay, I'm ready to put myself out there a little bit. I have to find a real job. How do I go about doing that? And, as silly as it sounds, so I was in my mid-40s, and I'm making my resume. So then there's the point of saying, what do I have to do? And actually saying to people, I'm 45 years old, and this is my first sit-down job interview. And people thought I was kidding. And I'm like, I'm not kidding. That was when I had my first sit-down job interview. And, then I became almost proud to tell people that, because it's okay. That doesn't matter, but I kind of judged myself, and so I was figuring others were judging me too. And then I kind of got to the point, well, even if you are, who cares? But it's a tough place to get to. But I had to get there. And so, mid-40s, there's me making a resume, kind of going, okay, how do I do that? And having a first job interview.
Yeah, I think that's awesome to be honest about that, because everybody's journey is different. So it doesn't mean exactly when you retire you're going to go through this midlife crisis, identity crisis. But throughout our lives, I find we dive into different pockets of like, who am I? Do I like this person? Do I want to go in a different route? What do I want to do when I grow up? And I think it's okay to really shed light that that's okay to have those questions, and it's not a bad thing or to be ashamed about, right?
That's right. That's the biggest thing is, sort of that strength within yourself, because usually when people are, if you ever hear anybody sort of saying anything negative, I think often it's because they're envious. They're in the same situation and you've dealt with it and they just don't know how to. So just know that at some point, whatever you're going through, somebody else is going through the same thing. And so if you can be an example in any way, that's awesome.
Yeah, and just being more open book about it rather than portraying that you have it all together. Who has it all together? No one does. Right?
Yeah, that's
and
so
I think
true.
That we need to start young and being you're going to have these questions when you finish high school. Who am I? What do I want to do? What are my passions? And then if you get married, you become a different person too, different priorities. And when you have children, when you want to develop a career, when you want to retire, I think we need to say that will be a continuous question, and that's okay. And just learning to be, like you said, adaptable in the unknown and uncomfortable, and that's okay.
For sure. That's exactly it.
And I find it so interesting to, just keep that conversation going and allow ourselves to be okay with not having everything planned out. People, in most job interviews, you get, what's your 5-year plan? And I'm like, how can you even say that? COVID hit, there's no plan. We're just in crisis mode, and we're in, survival. Right. And so I always preach about, I have a right now plan of what right now that makes me happy and at peace. And when has ever our 5-year plan ever worked? Why would we even make a 5-year plan? When has it ever actually worked out that way? Right?
True, very true.
So leading into the next question, I want to have this discussion about resilience with you. You have been through a lot of things, whether it's been through your sport or your personal issues or struggles that you've gone through throughout your whole life. It's my mission to show how to press on in my own difficulties, show that I have flaws and struggles, and also show my daughter how to rise up through those struggles. What has helped you to tap into that resiliency? How did you overcome the fall of the 94 games and battle back to winning gold and gold again, and then just overcome different struggles in your life?
I think the biggest thing is to understand who you are. And that's, do we ever? I'm not sure, but we'll continue to evolve as people and as individuals. But I don't think what changes is our core values. And so I think, throughout my career, I had to come back to my core values. Do I define myself by my skating? Do I define myself by who I am? Do I define myself by my work ethic? So I think that's the biggest thing that helps people overcome things is when you have those core values. Doesn't mean it's not difficult. And for sure, the difficulty of overcoming a fall at the Olympics, because when you're in that mode, it's truly almost a life or death situation, because that's all you know, and that's what you've been training, decades for. So it is tough, but things in your life constantly change, but hopefully that's where the core value side never changes. And so I think that's what's come, helped me through various things of career, of personal life, of struggles. And so, it doesn't make it easy, but you also, through that, find the people who you share those core values with. And so is it always family that help you get through those times? Not necessarily, but it's those people you trust. So whether that's family, whether that's friends, you need to make sure you have that support team so that when things do hit, close to rock bottom, that you have those people you can turn to.
Absolutely. And I think you really touched on a good point, is like knowing yourself and knowing those core values and saying, hey, either you win or you learn, but I'm not going to give up, right? Because you're guaranteed to lose if you don't get back up and try again, right?
Yeah, and I think people who think that people don't struggle, no, that's a load of garbage.
For sure.
I think, to me, leaders, you see leaders of big corporations, you see government leaders, and, especially in these times, like, we look to them, okay, give us an answer. Inside they're like, good Lord, I probably don't even know what's going on. Yet, we put pressures on them, and I'm not saying that, and they need the pressures on them because they've taken that role for a reason, but they don't always know the answers. And so, to me, some of the greatest leaders are the ones that admit not knowing the answers, are the ones who admit that there is a bit of fear, and there's a time for that and a time to be the very strong leader. But we all struggle. I don't care what role you were in, we all struggle, and that's a reality.
For sure. And like you said, we all have struggles and setbacks. And, unfortunately in today's society, a lot of times we just see the highlight reel. We just see everybody's wins. So then we're not getting a clear picture of the behind story and the scenes going on of the struggle of what it took to get the highlight reel, right? And I think we all need to just really showcase, even, with our friends in our circle and our families and our kids, I have real problems and sometimes I don't know the answer. And I think old school mentality is I'm never going to tell you I don't know. I'm just going to make something up. And I tell my 7-year-old, I honestly don't know. We'll have to Google that one, right? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait till they're 16 and 13.
Yeah. Oh,
even less. And then what you do know usually isn't cool anyways.
Right. It's not the right knowledge, right? It's you don't know anything.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
That's awesome. So do you think, I went for a long time feeling that it was unfair that I did have a setback, and going back to the fall, do you almost have a different perspective of almost I welcome that setback because that sets you up for more success of the other gold medals? How would you look at that and that setback, and how did you draw into that to create more success?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think people often say, oh, do you wish that hadn't happened? Well, that's unfair to ask because it did happen. So I can't change it. I think the thing is did I learn from it? Yes. And so I feel like I learned perspective. I feel like, that's when I kind of really came into why am I doing this? Who am I? That sort of a thing. So I don't know. If it hadn't happened, would I be the same person? Would I have dealt with the successes the same way? I'm not sure, and I often wonder that. But the thing is that, I don't like to look back and have regrets because, to me, you only look forward. So, it happened, and so what am I going to do about it? And I feel like I did learn about myself a lot more, and I had to. Otherwise, I would have quit, and I probably always would have questioned what I would have been able to do, and that to me is a terrible way to live.
Totally. And I totally agree with that because, I've had 3 miscarriages. Do I regret it? Like, it was awful. I wish I, didn't have to go through that, but I wouldn't have written my book. I wouldn't have, created my business. I wouldn't be talking to you today. So like, it shaped me to, for me to be resilient. So it's almost like a gift. It's, a sucky way to go through it, but it is a gift, right?
Yeah. And that's where I think I go back to, I'm not saying, I've had my really good friends lost their 18-year-old to cancer 3 years ago. So do I feel like, that was in the plan? I don't know, but I feel like whatever is put in your way, good comes out of it. And so, I look at their resilience, I look at how they live, and to me it's an example. So I just feel like everything that's put in your path, there is good that can come from it. I don't know why certain things are put in your path. And if I start thinking about that too much, you go crazy. But it's what you do with situations.
Yes, for sure. So, you've developed that resiliency. You're close to 50. You've learned through all the struggles and the wins, and now you have 2 teenage children. Like, how do you teach your kids to overcome certain adversities? Because I struggle a little bit with my daughter because I've had some extreme setbacks. And so sometimes you're like, I'm trying to protect her. I don't want her to feel that kind of pain and setback. And so I get into the lawnmower mentality, right? Like, I'll just bullet all over for you and create smooth sailing. But that doesn't build resiliency in them. So how do you teach that to your kids to be gritty?
Ooh, that's a tough one because there's nothing that you want to do more than just protect your kids from pain, but you realize that you can't. So, I think we learn from each other. And, in general, like, you kind of go, okay, kids, it's a great life. But it's, tough being a teenager. My daughter's a pretty anxious kid. She's a perfectionist, and I was a perfectionist, and it's a tough way to be. And then if I look at, things like my ex and I, we split 3.5 years ago, and I was sort of blindsided by that. And so you can't take that pain away from the kids. And so, it's something you kind of try to hide a little bit, but then I'm like, why should I be embarrassed? But, people kind of go, oh, well, you're this Olympic Gold Medalist. Everything in your life goes well. And it's like, really? But that's the assumption that people have. So it's been an interesting adjustment in that way to go, you know what? I'm okay that I'm a single mom of 2 teenage kids. And then you sort of get into this, the real world of how do you actually date? Just weird stuff. And so then even the side of, people going, okay, well, you're recognizable. So do you go on online dating? And I had friends go, no, you can't. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to take the plunge and do it. And it was just a weird thing because some people would reach out going, hey, I think I recognize you. And you're like, oh my goodness. So, it's been a journey that in a way, like I've kind of, it sounds strange that you'd say you do it with your kids. Now that, we've been split for 3.5 years, they're kind of, oh, hey, mommy, you're going on a date. Oh, good. They're kind of looking at going, okay, good. We want you to be happy and all this. And so that's been really interesting. And that's not something you plan for. That's not something that, you can fix for your kids, but it's an interesting little, other setback and part of a journey that you go, okay, well, good's going to come out of this somehow. But, when you talk about the kid side is that, they're smarter than we are. They see more than we think they see. So how I get through any of that is just by being real. I am a super emotional person. I don't try to hide that. I hide it from probably the real world, but the people in my circle, they know it. My kids know it. And I don't try to pretend that life is easy. To me, that's what I can teach them is that they'll be fine, but life isn't easy. And that's okay to say.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And that means you've really put the work in to allow yourself to be real. And I always say when I do my talks is like, kids aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for real. They're looking for you to say, hey, I'm having struggles and this is how I'm navigating through this. And I'm going to teach you by modeling it. You're going to have resiliency and grit because you're seeing mama practice what she preaches. Right? Like,
totally.
That's all we got to do. And it's going to be imperfect. I'm not going to get it right all the time, but this is reality. And it's teaching them that there's going to be these struggles going through life. And then you're teaching them how to do it by you doing it, just by not hiding it, right?
Exactly. And by not changing. You know, I'm a pretty strong, driven female, and that is very difficult for a lot of people, especially males. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that I won't change that. I won't apologize for that because I'm going to show my daughter that if she wants to be a strong, independent female, that's okay. And if my son, you know, marries some strong, independent woman, that's okay. And so, you know, I think the biggest thing is to not change because the temptation is there. You know, to not to conform, because I'm not saying, because there are many strong, whether you're male, female, but, you know, to be independent, to know that if you are on your own, that you will survive, that it's threatening to a lot of people. And I had to kind of come to terms with being okay that was threatening to some. So not changing and not kind of conforming to what people think you should be, that's difficult, but it's something that you can't do. You really can't give in to that if that's not who you are.
Yes, and like being adaptable to situations and circumstances and life in general, but really honing the line and holding that line on yourself, like being unapologetically you, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's difficult, but
it is. And I think that, like, I don't know about you, but I'm in my late 30s, so it's just taken me in the last couple of years to really understand, like, you know, I might not be accepted in some circles, but that's okay because I accept myself. But like, it took me a long time to get to that point. Like, did it take you a little bit of a journey to get to that point, or were you able to get that earlier?
Oh, goodness. You're saying that and you're in your 30s. I'm like, wow, I'm impressed. No, it's just taken me in the last few years to really be okay with any of that. So, again, everybody's on, you know, there's no set timeline. And so everybody has to accept that.
Yes, but I think having these conversations, women, you know, I'm a strong woman, you know, so are you, like we can have these conversations and then allow our children to maybe possibly get it sooner than us. And that's the goal, is to like, exactly. How do I teach you not to, you know, go half your life and not really own who you are? Like, it's okay. It's okay if people don't like you.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
So awesome. I don't know if you realize, but you have been somewhat of a body image icon for girls for years and years and years, because I remember watching you on the ice and seriously marveling at your quads and your legs and just like, wow, she has such strong legs just like me. I'm a sprinter. I'm 5'2". I'm built, right? And you know, that's never considered feminine in this still in this day and age. It's considered masculine, athletic build, right? Like, it's beautiful. And it made me really appreciate, and you were there in the spotlight showing that powerful legs is still beautiful. And you have a daughter. How do you encourage her in her teenage years, primetime self-confidence, to love her body no matter what shape or size it is?
Yeah, you know what, we're going through exactly that right now because she's so strong. She's, you know, not a bulky build. I don't know, sort of as she develops, because I was actually really lean muscle and really kind of little until in my 20s, and then I really sort of put on the bulk, and it was the training and everything. But you know, I always say, like, muscle is beautiful, and you know, it's an adjustment because I'm not as strong as I used to be. My legs aren't as big, and people go, "Oh, are you glad?" I'm like, "No, actually, I'm not. I just don't have the time to get to the gym and build them up because I love the fact that they were big and strong, and that's okay, you know." And the fact that most pants nowadays have spandex in them, that's awesome. Makes it way easier to fit pants now. But you know, I love that. And I love that, you know, I go to the gym and I'll do weights and I I was doing a workout the other day, and I've lost so much strength, but somebody's saying, well, you're still really defined. I'm like, okay, good. And it's okay to look in the mirror and go, I want to look good. That's okay. Mm-hmm. But again, I think you nailed it. It's sort of accepting it. We can't change a lot of things. And I'm okay that, that I always joke that I'm built a little bit like a pear. I'm pretty little shoulders. I'm, pretty little everywhere up top. And then I've whitish hips, and I've always had, the bulk. And I'm okay with that because, I like it. It's athletic. And I tell my daughter, she'll look at her legs going, oh, look at them. And I'm like, Greta, you were ripped. And then, her 13-year-old brother, Greta, you're so strong. It's amazing. And, it's just that. I know it's pretty cool, but it's tough because, you know what? Nobody is perfect. And when we look at ourselves, I don't care if you're 13, 16, in your 30s, or if you're 49 like me, you look and you see the faults. And yet, I kind of like, oh, I wish I had bigger eyes. Oh, I wish I had, this and that. But we always want to change something. But we are who we are. And, I just think it's the accepting side. And I don't know. Do we ever truly accept ourselves? I don't know. I would say probably not. But hopefully we do. And hopefully we have people around us who, continue to, regardless of whatever's going on, or regardless of who they are, they can remind us of how amazing we are. So, you need those people in your life. And whether it's, reminding you physically, reminding you emotionally, and none of that is bad. None of that is bad. It's okay to want that sort of reassurance. That's okay.
Totally. And I think it's just redefining, what loving yourself means. And I always talk about 80's the new 100. Like, we all have flaws. So it's probably just 20% though. So I just accept that there's 20% flaws there, and I'm not even going to put much attention to it, but I'm going to be totally accepting and in love of the 80% and rock on, right? And that's changed my whole way of looking in the mirror. And, I'm super muscular. Most t-shirts or short sleeve shirts never fit my biceps. They cut off the circulation, and I'm so frustrated when I go and try on clothes. But instead of melting in the change room and feeling, oh, I'm too big for this, I must not be good enough, I must not be the measure of a beautiful woman, I'm not a good figure, I go, oh, well, not my shirt, right? I've had to change that. It's no big deal. I'm just muscular. Right?
Well, and it's a little bit like age. I mean, people are like, oh, you're about to turn 50. I'm a Christmas baby. I'm December 23rd, so I'm turning 50 this Christmas. And that doesn't bother me at all. It's like, okay, so on the 23rd, I'll be one day older than I was on the 22nd. And numbers don't bother me. And I'm like, you know what? If I can surprise some people going, really, you're turning 50? I wouldn't have thought so. I'm like, ha! To me, that's in a way such a success. Yes, I tricked somebody. And yet I'm like, great, embrace it. I'm all right with that. So it's a little bit of accepting of that as well.
Totally. And I think that's just all part of being unapologetically you, accepting all parts of you, and leaning into that not everything is going to be perfect, right? So it's just great, and if you do struggle, then that's just part of your 20%. Be like, I'm aware of that's a soft point for me, but I know I'm really good at other areas, or I really rock other parts of myself. So I accept the 20% today, right?
Yep, that's so true.
Awesome. So you have done so much in your career, in your life. You're obviously such an inspirational person off the ice and on the ice, but what is your legacy? Is it the gold medals? Is it what you did? Or do you have a broader term of what your legacy means to you?
I would say broader term. I mean, I often, say to my kids, and where this came from was, again, my mom really, sort of ingrained in us a good work ethic and never to judge people. So I've never thought that, I won 2 gold medals, but it doesn't make me any better than anybody else. People have their successes and I have mine, and they're just different. So when I retired, I started going on boards, and some people had said to me, oh, you're so busy and you're away. And I'm like, yeah, but then I'm able to bring my kids to Special Olympics games and introduce them to the athletes, and they've gotten to know them, and bring them to Canada Games, and, you know, show them what that's all about. And to me, you know, I always say to my kids, we don't know when our last day is. No, I could be around for another 40 years. I could be around for 2 more days. Who knows? So I always say to my kids, you know, if tomorrow's my last day, what will people remember? And you just hope that you made an impact on people in whatever way. So whether it's from the volunteering side, whether it's, you know, that I've been able to be an example of perseverance, whether I've been an example of strength, whether I've been an example that, you know what, you can do a lot of stuff. You can be a super bum, and you can do it on your own, and you can ask for help. So I don't know exactly what my legacy is, but it's beyond the sport side. You know, hopefully the sport side showed people my ability to pave a path, because nobody had defended a gold medal before. So I sort of redefined it's never happened. Oh, well, let's show people it can happen and pave a path for the rest of the people to come after you. But, you know, hopefully my legacy continues. And, you know, I kind of often do that, is think, okay, if I were to go, if I die tomorrow, who would be at my funeral and what would they say about me? And maybe that sounds weird, but to me it's just, okay, good. I've made an impact on people. Because, you know, you don't take things with you. You don't take medals. You don't take titles. You don't take any of that stuff. So, you know what? People want nice things. That's not a bad thing. I want to make a good life for my kids. I want to take them on some fun trips. But at the end of the day, you don't take any of that with you. You just take the impact that you've made on people.
Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful. And like, yeah, really sitting with that, because I'm sure people don't often sit there and be like, what is my legacy? But like, ask yourself that question, like, what is my footprint on this world? And what I get to define what that is. And even if you haven't done anything about it today, like, you start tomorrow. Start right now is like, how do I make a positive impact and leave a footprint on the world when I leave, right?
That's so true.
Awesome. Well, it's been such a pleasure having this really amazing, deep conversation about, you know, just leaning into our lives and being human and flawed and awesome, and just showcasing how to be the hero of your life. So thank you so much for coming on today and really showing a piece of your heart with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You know, just having these conversations, I think, are so important because, you know, hopefully in this conversation, we're able to reach at least one person. But I think even for myself to be able to sort of verbalize and be able to affirm that within myself, it's so important. So thank you for allowing me to do that.
Thank you. And so you're with Sport Calgary with COVID. What are you working on? Are you still getting things organized? What are your next steps during this season and this unknown, being adaptable?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's been interesting with, you know, as soon as sports stopped, our sport groups were, you know, we deal with over 300 sport organizations, local clubs, and so they were lost. And so, you know, we started surveying them, hey, what do you need? What's going to happen? What are your concerns? And what was kind of neat was that our little local survey ended up going national with Sport for Life. So, you know, we made a real impact, and it's developed some conversations with provincial ministers, federal ministers, and so making sure that people keep that awareness of sport and how important sport is. And it doesn't mean the high performance. It means local sport, because not only were people lacking the physical side, they were lacking the emotional, the social, and especially for kids, how important it is, for adults, how important it is, but also the mental side. We know that being active, regardless of what level of activity, we know how important it is for the mental health. And so we've continued to try to really advocate for that. And as sports are sort of in that return to mode, helping them try to get through all the guidelines and help them understand it, because it's confusing for everybody. So it's definitely a frustrating time, but hopefully in the next 6 months, you know, we come out as a stronger community than ever.
Yes, and just another portal to develop resiliency, right?
Yep, that's right.
Awesome. Just to recap what we talked about today: persevering through closed doors, how to be adaptable in the unknowns. Resiliency is a byproduct of knowing yourself. how we can really hone in on our core values, being unapologetically you, flaws and all, and making an impact, a positive impact on the world, and that is our legacy. And ask that question of yourself, how can I leave a footprint on this world that makes a difference? Thanks again, Katrina, for coming on and just having this really awesome conversation with me.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
If you want to learn more about my consulting program, purchase my book, or have me speak at your next event, please visit blaisehunter.com. I do have a free offer for everyone. It is on the free offers tab on my website. When we feel lost in the day with anxiety and overwhelm, I have a video that shows how to map your life back to peace and balance. When we're lost, when we're driving, what do? We Google Maps it. So why not map our life? Come back to peace and balance and be the hero of our lives. Thanks again for Katrina coming on. And that's it for this week's episode. Challenge yourself to be vulnerable, lean into the difficulties, and have those open conversations so we can rise up as the heroes of our lives and let us breathe fire together. If you've enjoyed this show, please subscribe and support Blaise the Trail podcast. Reviews are always welcome and very much appreciated. Thanks for listening. I'm Blaise Hunter.
You've been listening to Blaise the Trail with Blaise Hunter. To learn more about how you can breathe fire and unleash the hero within, or to listen to past episodes, visit blaisehunter.com.